Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to an all-new edition of War Week Radio. Guys, I'm Joseph Herron, writer for FightSaga.com, and I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. We were originally scheduled to feature my brother, heavyweight Brian Dantzler, but he couldn't make it tonight. We're going to reschedule with him because of scheduling conflicts, but we're going to go forward, and we're going to talk about a couple things this evening. First thing we're going to discuss, and once again, guys, before we move forward, we do have to remind everyone that the show is always brought to you by FightSaga.com. Guys, for our latest boxing news, please go visit FightSaga.com. But guys, first topic we're going to discuss is Terence Bud Crawford. Now, it was just stated by Mr. Bob Arum that he's got a short list of 3 potential opponents for his final fight under his current contract with Top Rank, and it's scheduled to be on October 23rd. And the 3 names that Bob Arum just, spewed. Regis Prograis, who's now a free agent. Jose Zepeda, who was involved in the fight of the year 2020 with Ivan Baranchyk, and Jose Ramirez. Keep in mind, guys, these are all 140-pound fighters, customarily. But all 3 have expressed a willingness to potentially move up. I know Jose Ramirez is currently having a hard time making weight. So is Regis Prograis. He hasn't successfully made weight. Let me look it up real quick. He hasn't successfully made weight, guys, since he fought Josh Taylor in October of 2019. But guys, let's go back to Bob Arum's comments. He said, those are the 3 names that we're looking at. We don't know who Bob or Terence is going to fight yet, but we'll work on it. Guys, I'll tell you why, more than likely, it's not going to be any one of those 3 guys, right? Now, once again, Jose Zepeda, that does nothing to move the needle. Even if you're a huge fan of Terence Crawford, it's impossible to get excited for that because of the difference in levels. Now, once again, no offense to Jose Zepeda and his fans, but he is not nearly on the same level as a Terence Bud Crawford. He's a crafty guy, southpaw, very good boxer puncher. But no, Terence Crawford would make short work of it. And that more than likely wouldn't do anything for ESPN ratings and what they've grown accustomed to getting when Terence Bud Crawford fights, right? So we look at Jose Ramirez. This is a guy coming off a loss. Yes, he wants to move up to 47, but I don't think he wants to face Terence Bud Crawford coming off a loss. I don't think anyone wants to see that either. Regis Prograis. Now, let's take a look at what he had to say, right? Regis Prograis said this, quote, I've been hearing my name thrown around with everyone right now. They were saying Adrian Bronner, then they said Mikey Garcia. Bob Arum said something about me and Terence Crawford. I think realistically, probably me and Mikey Garcia. Me and Crawford probably won't happen because I'm not going to 147 right now. I want to stay at 140 and want a belt at 140 pounds again, end quote. Is that realistic, though? Like I pointed out earlier, guys, keep in mind, he hasn't successfully made 140 pounds since 2019. He weighed at almost 142 pounds against Juan Heraldez in the Alamo Dome in October of 2020. He weighed in at 143 against Ivan Redkach on Triller in April of this year. Guys, he's 32 years old. I don't think he can comfortably, now I know he wants to, In a perfect world, he could still compete at junior welterweight. But guys, realistically, I don't think Regis Prograis can comfortably make weight any longer. So, anyway, but guys, to get that fight, Regis Prograis would have to sign a multi-fight deal with Top Rank. They're not going to give him that fight otherwise. And looking at the landscape of 47 and 40, I'm not sure he's going to be willing to do that. Just by hearing him talk, I don't know if he's, that eager to step in the ring with Terence Bud Crawford. So guys, don't be surprised if we don't see one of the names on that short list fight Terence Crawford on October 23rd. If I had to make an educated guess, I'll tell you exactly who I think he's going to fight, right? And once again, a lot of people, I think it's going to be Josh Taylor. In fact, I'd be willing to put money on it, right? One, it has to make sense for Terence Crawford. If they're going to be investing $4 million, it's got to do something to draw ratings and move the needle, right? And now that they just signed a deal with Sky, that would be an easy pay-per-view on Sky's box office. So this is what Josh Taylor had to say. And once again, a lot of people will say, well, he's got his mandatory with Jack Catterall to deal with. Well, you know what? If he's going to move up anyway, why would you even waste your time with that? Why don't you do Jack Catterall a favor, because he has no chance of beating Josh Taylor? Why don't you do him a favor? Vacate that title. Let him fight for the vacant title. Give him a better opportunity to become a champion. Because after becoming the second junior welterweight in history to win undisputed unified champ at 140 in the 4-belt era, after Terence Crawford did it, you want to cash in. You want to make money. He's not getting any younger. So this is what he had to say at the prospect of possibly fighting Terence Crawford. He said this, quote, "It's a massive fight. It's a huge fight. It's an undisputed champion and against another undisputed champion. I think he's one of the best fighters on the planet at the minute, pound for pound, but so am I. And I feel like I can win that fight. I'd have to be switched on with all my concentration, but I really feel like I can win that fight. I have no doubt in my mind that I can win that fight. He's a great fighter, a great champion, and I think he can do it all, but so can I. I feel like I fought better opposition than him. I feel like I can win that fight, and I will," end quote. Guys, it makes absolutely no sense from a monetary standpoint to defend against a BS mandatory like Jack Catterall. Once again, no offense, he's a good fighter, but he's not at that level. Josh Taylor just proved that he's one of the best fighters in boxing. He's a pound-for-pound stud. He's a switch-hitting badass, just like Terence Crawford, and he's a big 140-pound fighter who can easily compete at 147. And to be honest with you guys, now, once again, a lot of Terence Crawford's, detractors, irrational detractors, for some reason, they really hate this guy. And they always talk about, he hasn't fought anyone at 47. Oh, okay. So fighting a pound-for-pound stud like Josh Taylor would do a lot more for Terence Crawford's legacy than fights against Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, and Danny Garcia at this stage in their respective careers. No offense to those guys. They're very good fighters. But none of those guys are elite at this stage in their career. They once were. Excuse me. Keith Thurman especially was, right? But he's a semi-retired fighter now. And he wants way too much money. They're still living on their reputation back circa 2015, 2016. They're not big draws anymore, guys. But they still want that kind of money. Guys, the best option for Terence Crawford and Josh Taylor is to fight each other. And guys, don't rule out the fact that they could possibly stage a huge event in the UK and put it on pay-per-view Sky Sports. Right? Show it on regular ESPN here, stateside. Or they could get that big casino side fee and just show it on, have a special start time. Show it on pay-per-view in the UK. Either way, guys, it's a much more meaningful fight for Terence Crawford's legacy. Look. And once again, fans could argue with me all they want, but they would be wrong. Because I'm sorry, Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, those guys aren't future Hall of Famers, and they're not even on anyone's pound-for-pound list currently. Josh Taylor is. He's an undefeated badass. He's an undisputed champion. He has no losses. And guys, it's a great matchup. Don't be surprised if that fight happens. But I'll tell you what's a really terrible sign, though, for Bud Crawford and his relationship with Top Rank is the fact that, well, Bob Arum spit out those three names. Those three names that no one wants to see Terence Crawford fight. In my opinion, guys, that's a clear indication that Bob Arum and Top Rank has absolutely zero interest in renewing Terence Crawford's contract in October. And once again, it's no one's fault. It is what it is. It's the guys who have shown, well, I don't even know if it's genuine interest, but if it's guys who have shown interest in fighting Terence Crawford from the PBC roster, well, they've religiously outbid themselves. They priced themselves out of those fights. All those guys want career high paydays to face Terence Crawford, and the money just isn't there. Like if he fought Sean Porter right now, if they made a genuine effort in giving Sean Porter exactly what he wants to face Terence Crawford, one, you would have no choice but to put that on ESPN pay-per-view because the purse would be approaching $10 million, just like the Amir Khan fight. And I'm sorry, but that fight's not going to sell. So it's very difficult to justify that $10 million purse. Keith Thurman wants even more money than that because he still believes he's a big draw. Look, unless he's the B-side of Manny Pacquiao, he's not. He's not a mainstream attraction. Maybe he once was 5 years ago on CBS, on NBC. But guys, not anymore. He's far removed from that. Right? So do fights with those guys, do they do anything for Terence Crawford's legacy? Absolutely not. The only fights that do anything from the PBC roster currently for Terence Crawford's legacy are Errol Spence Jr. and Manny Pacquiao. And unfortunately, to get that fight, well, it's pretty obvious. Terence Crawford's going to have to leave Top Rank and sign a multi-fight deal with Al Heyman, which very well may happen. In fact, I'd be willing to bet money that it happens after his October 23rd fight. In fact, don't be surprised if they've already been in touch with him. Right? But guys, don't be shocked if those 340-pound names do not face Terence Crawford on October 23rd if I had to bet money, I would say it's Josh Taylor. And you know what? That is probably at this time, outside of Errol Spence Jr. and Manny Pacquiao, that is the very best fight that he can make this year, 2020. But I have to tell you guys, it's absolutely criminal what's happened to Terence Crawford since moving up to 147. And you can't fault him, guys. And once again, his fans will regurgitate this nonsense. Like, who's he fought? Who's he fought? Well, let's see who he's fought. Once again, did he waste his time defending any of those titles once he became undisputed 140-pound champion? No. He immediately went for bigger money, moved up, and fought the guy who beat Manny Pacquiao to take his WBO title, Jeff Warren. Undefeated Jeff Warren. Blew him out. TKO'd him in 9. Didn't lose a round. Then he fought undefeated Jose Benavidez Jr., who had a version of the WBA title, but we don't even recognize that, right? Undefeated Jose Benavidez Jr. He fought former multi-division world champion Amir Khan. Blew him out in 6. He fought undefeated Egidijus Kavaliauskas, who we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. So he's got a big fight coming up on August 14th against Vergil Ortiz. And everyone's going to see that Egidijus Kavaliauskas, boy, he's a problem for anyone at 47. Anyone, including Sean Porter, including Yordenis Ugas, including Keith Thurman, including Errol Spence, and including Manny Pacquiao. It's a problem for anyone. We'll explain why later on in the program. And then he fought, Kell Brook, who's a shot fighter. And anyone who's been listening to this show for the past, year or so, we told you as much. Right? But once again, former IBF 147-pound champion. Egidijus Kavaliauskas, formerly undefeated, 2-time Olympian from Lithuania. Guys, these are tough guys. These are tough fighters. Very good, established, accomplished fighters. And the world's going to find out, Vergil Ortiz is going to find out how tough Egidijus Kavaliauskas actually is. So, guys, I don't understand where all the Terence Crawford hatred comes from. But, yeah, it's a damn shame. It's absolutely criminal how one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the sport has been on the shelf throughout the entire year, and we're already almost approaching July. It's sad. But that tells me everything. That Bob Arum and Top Rank have no interest in re-signing Terence Crawford. You're going to see him fight as a free agent and more than likely signing a multi-fight deal with Al Haymon and PBC later on this year. Right? So if he's successful in retaining his title on October 23rd, don't be surprised if we finally get to see unification between Terence Crawford and the winner of Manny Pacquiao, Errol Spence Jr. You already know what I think is going to be the winner, the likely winner of this, right? Brian Mackey joins us. Thank you, brother. PBC fighters and their fans always have an excuse when it comes to fighting Crawford. Amen, my friend. Thank you for joining us, Brian. It's a shame, and it's absolutely criminal how fans of that platform and specific fighters on that roster will rationalize why it's okay to either price themselves out or swerve when they see Terence Crawford coming. It's downright shameful. It's terrible for the sport of boxing. And I have lost a ton of respect for Errol Spence Jr. as a result. I mean, he had it to the point where Terence Crawford even showed up at his event. And when asked, well, what'd you think of Terence Crawford being here in attendance? Oh, I don't know why he even showed up. Well, why do you think, dummy? trying to stoke interest in a potential matchup. But obviously Errol Spence wasn't interested. But I guarantee you guys, there's a reason why he's showing interest now. Because Al Heyman has probably been in touch with TC and Brian Bomack, right? Brian McIntyre. And he's more than likely going to make the switch. He's had a guarantee he's going to fight Errol Spence Jr. If Errol Spence is successful in defeating Manny Pacquiao, mark my words, he will face Terence Crawford. Maybe not at the end of the year, but it's going to be in 2022. That's the fight everyone wants to see, and now there would be no reason not to make that fight. But up until this point, it's been a damn travesty that we haven't seen it. And once again, there's no incentive for Al Heyman. He's like, well, just wait. His contract is up. We'll be able to keep everything in-house, including that WBO title, including all the titles, no matter who wins. Once again, it has to be worth it. And this is one of the reasons why we stated on this show, guys, that I'll be damn surprised if Caleb Plant does indeed fight Canelo Alvarez later this year. Because it has to make sense for Al Heyman. Look at Deontay Wilder in their cross promotion with Tyson Fury. Very seldom does Al Heyman engage in one-offs, especially on a rival network. Doesn't happen. It has to be worth his while. So you're going to see either a rematch clause, 2-fight deal, or signing Canelo Alvarez to a multi-fight deal, 3 fights on their network in order for that fight to happen, and it's not going to happen. Right? So it has to make sense. And this is why I truly believe that we will finally see Terence Crawford versus the winner of Spence Pacquiao later this year or in the spring of next year. Because Al Heyman will be able to keep everything in-house, guys. So I tell you what, let's shift gears, guys. We still have a lot of things to discuss. Next up on the agenda, Wilder versus Fury 3. Does Deontay Wilder genuinely believe these absurd cheating accusations any longer? Guys, I'll tell you my theory. I'll explain why I don't believe it. I don't think he believes it any further. Right? I'm going to read quotes from Paulie Malignaggi, and these are quite extensive, right? But I think he's absolutely right. And Paulie Malignaggi said last week after that, press conference in which Wilder was just silent, just completely clammed up. He said this, quote, Wilder's been talking a lot, and then he gets to the press conference and he doesn't talk at all. And here's the thing. In my experience, it's always easier to trash talk when the person is not in front of you. It's always a little more difficult to summon up the nerve and the bravery to talk that same trash when they're in the room. Although Deontay tried to play like he was too cool for the media and too cool for everyone, I found it rather telling because he got run over in his last fight. Dude, you got run over like a train runs over a corpse. And I was genuinely looking forward to seeing what Deontay Wilder had to say because he really had a lot to say after the fight. Whether you agree with him or not, personally, I disagree. I think it's nonsense. But nonetheless, if you have the guts to say that in the presence of Fury, you double down on the fact that you believe in yourself. But when he showed up and couldn't talk after saying all of that, I feel like he's trying to cover up the fact that he was intimidated. Did he just go to arbitration for the payday? You ask most people on the street, they'll take $20 million for a beating. So is Deontay taking that approach? I really thought he was going to come to the presser with some enthusiasm and double down on himself, but he had me fooled. I really thought he believed himself. I thought he was crazy, but I really thought that he believed in himself, even if I felt like he was in denial in doing so. But he didn't say a damn word. He was as quiet as a mouse, and that for me was very telling, end quote. Guys, I think Paulie Malignaggi is right on the money. In fact, I think that's a primary reason why he didn't want to speak to any of the mainstream media in attendance. He just elected to do one-on-one interviews with fans who had cameras, who had already bought into the absurd narrative that there was cheating going on, that believe in Glovegate, that believe in the tempered water theory, that believe in the white privilege. And that's the reason why the WBC did not conduct a formal investigation into Glovegate. I'm truly convinced that Deontay Wilder doesn't believe any of this nonsense anymore. He just doesn't want to go back to his diehard cult-like fan base and say, you know what, guys, we were wrong. He's hoping to get a victory on July 24th and be able to go back to them and say, look, guys, see, I told you we were vindicated. Everything that we thought up to this point was right on the money. Right? But did he confront Tyson Fury about it? No. Guys, go back to Miguel Cotto, 2011, when he genuinely believed Antonio Margarito had cheated in their first meeting. Miguel Cotto wasn't at a shortage of words, things to say. In fact, he even brought a picture with him at the HBO face-off with both of them sitting across the table from each other. He showed him pictures and said, look at your hand wraps. What is that right there? That looks funny. That does not look normal. Why is your hand wrap pink? And he got in his face and said, I think you cheated. Guys, let's go back to, this is evidence again, right? And Deontay Wilder, do you really believe if he thought someone cheated and put something in his glove, do you really think he would want to fight someone he truly believed cheated? Well, history tells us that he wouldn't. Guys, go back to May of 2016. He was supposed to fight Alexander Povetkin. He spent 2 weeks in England training there, finishing up his camp to get acclimated to the time change. And unfortunately was called off because Povetkin tested positive for a recently banned substance, meldonium. Now keep in mind, guys, this was only put on the banned substance list 3 months before he tested positive. Maria Sharapova tested positive for this same substance and was banned from one of her tournaments. Did Wilder try to set up another fight with Alexander Povetkin again? He said, hell no. He's a drug cheat. I'm not going to fight a drug cheat, someone who tested positive right before our fight. No, he just took him to court for breach of contract and he won. Got paid a cool $5 million for absolutely nothing. Now you're telling me that the same guy who refused to reschedule another fight with Alexander Povetkin is willing to step in the ring with a guy that he genuinely thought cheated. And if he thought WBC and the Nevada State Athletic Commission were in on the fix, why the hell is he fighting in Nevada again? If you thought that they were in on it, that they're inspectors, that they were incompetent to allow something like that to happen, why are you fighting in Nevada again? Guys, I'm convinced. I'm truly convinced he doesn't believe any of this rubbish any further. My final and strongest point here, if you genuinely believe that the only reason why you lost in February of 2020 so decisively in a one-sided beatdown, if you truly believe that the only reason why you lost was because the other guy cheated, why on earth are you making such a strong effort to improve strategically, to improve in camp, to change your fight plan? If that's the only reason why you lost, well, then why are you changing anything? Guys, I'm truly convinced he doesn't believe this narrative any further. It's the primary reason why he didn't want to bring it up. He didn't want to answer any questions regarding any of this. I'm truly convinced, guys. He just does not want to look like a buffoon and embarrass all of his diehard cult followers who have been on the bandwagon espousing this nonsense. Right? That would be like on Christmas Eve telling your kids, sorry guys, you know what? There's no Santa Claus. I'm the one who's been delivering the presents the whole time. Your kids would be crushed. That's exactly what it would be like if Deontay Wilder came out and said, you know, guys, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong here. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was anxiety. Maybe you just caught me with a good shot behind the ear in the third round and I just couldn't recover. Screwed up my equilibrium. Screwed up my balance. He beat me up. And it wasn't cheating. It wasn't product of cheating. Like, could you imagine what his fans would say if he didn't double down on this nonsense? Guys, that's the real reason why he didn't want to answer any questions. So that's how I feel about it. Guys, leave any comment. Let me know what you think. Right? So, guys, let's go to our next topic. Let's talk about Gervonta Davis versus Mario Barrios. Coming up this Saturday night on pay-per-view for the bargain basement price of $69.99. Gervonta Tank Davis versus Mario Barrios. And a lot of people are starting to pick the upset. And once again, Tank Davis going into this fight is a 4-1 betting favorite. They're at a minus 400, right? Mario Barrios is a very live plus 275. And for a good reason. Tall, rangy, undefeated, can punch a little bit. He's got a very good trainer in Vergil Hunter. But as good as Mario Barrios has looked, as impressive as he's been in his undefeated campaign thus far, he is not a special fighter. At least he hasn't proven it up to this point. Gervonta Davis, guys, is a special fighter. You're going to see this weekend two very special fighters, and they're going to do everything they can to remind fans of this. And I'm referring to Gervonta Davis as well as Vasyl Lomachenko in Vegas against Masayoshi Nakatani. Guys, Gervonta Davis has it all. Underrated boxing skills, deep amateur pedigree, elite level reflexes, elite level power, underrated physical and mental durability. Guys, this guy's going to show you. Now, Mario Barrios is going to have his success in the first half of the fight. But Gervonta Davis is going to walk him down with that peekaboo defense and look for spots, look for holes, look to counter him effectively. And Vergil Hunter, if his history has shown us anything in his, various work with various fighters, Mario Barrios is going to do something very uncharacteristic. It's going to be very unpopular. Every time Tank Davis closes the distance on him and pushes him up against the ropes or in a corner, he's going to wrap up Gervonta Davis. At least he's going to try, like a damn octopus. And I always go back to Vergil Hunter when he started training Amir Khan. In his first fight with Amir Khan, taking on Luis Collazo. It was terrible. Terribly uneventful fight in which Amir Khan's only answer whenever Luis Collazo got underneath or got into close range, he wrapped him up like a damn octopus. He won an easy decision, decisive one-sided decision, but it was a terribly uncomfortable fight to watch. Well, Mario Barrios, that's not his DNA, but hey, he's going to try. Let's hope Mario Barrios doesn't elect to just wrap him up every time he works his way underneath. It's going to stink out the joint. But guys, Gervonta Davis is the full package. He's a special fighter. And if Mario Barrios elects to fight him and keep the fight in the center of the ring, you're going to see a very entertaining fight in which Gervonta Davis is going to start to close the distance, start to land effectively in the mid to late rounds. He's going to start to pull away. You're going to start to see his class. Guys, make no mistake, Tank Davis is a special fighter. You're going to see that on Saturday night. Vasyl Lomachenko is the same way. And guys, a lot of people are picking the upset here too. Masayoshi Nakatani is an awesome fight. He's a tough guy. Tough piece of meat, always in great shape. Very tall and rangy. Definitely has the advantage in size. But Vasyl Lomachenko, and this is why he's going to, prove to do much better than Teofimo Lopez did against Nakatani several years ago. He's going to be able, once he closes the distance and is able to find range against Nakatani, he's going to carve him up like a Thanksgiving turkey. Nakatani is a guy who doesn't like to hold on the inside. He tries to fight you from mid to long range, and he likes to bang. He doesn't like to hold. And once Lomachenko successfully closes the distance, he's going to have his way with him. Guys, this fight, odds makers have this fight. List Vasyl Lomachenko as a 12-1 betting favorite for a reason. Nakatani is only listed as a 7-1 betting underdog, right? Reminiscent of odds for Haney versus Linares. I know it sounds a little wide, but there's a reason for that, guys. A healthy, motivated Vasyl Lomachenko who wants a rematch with Teofimo Lopez later on this year or next year. He desperately wants that fight, so he wants to make a statement. Guys, look for the best version of Gervonta Davis and Vasyl Lomachenko this Saturday night. I like both of them. I like them to win decisively. Lomachenko by unanimous decision, and Gervonta Davis by decisive knockout in the mid to late rounds. So let's move to our final topic of the night, right? Let's move to our final topic, guys. August 14th. That was the original, new date for Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos. And I know last week, Brian Dantzler and I, we shared our opinion whether or not we thought that COVID was a cover-up. But apparently, from what I'm being told, no, Teofimo Lopez really has COVID. I found it a little difficult to believe at first, but no, they insist that Teofimo Lopez has COVID. And more than likely, it's not going to remain on August 14th, guys. From what I've been told, this is going to be in the co-main event on 9/11. On the undercard, in the co-main event of Oscar De La Hoya versus Victor Belfort, right? Which is exactly where this fight should have been. In the co-main event of a much more mainstream attractive event, or fight rather, matchup. Once again, Teofimo Lopez, he has to respect the process. He's not there yet. He's not a big ticket seller yet. He's not a huge mainstream draw. I know he and his dad want him to be a mainstream draw, and they want him to headline. They even turned down the Jake Paul event because they truly believe that they're big stars. Well, you're not there yet, buddy. You have 2 exemplary victories on your resume against Richard Comey as well as Vasyl Lomachenko. But you've never headlined an event in which you've been the headlining A-side and you've proven to be a big ticket seller. This is exactly where he needs to be, in the co-main event, in a much stronger mainstream matchup, like Oscar De La Hoya and Victor Belfort. Let's just hope that Teofimo Lopez is still the same guy and isn't dramatically and detrimentally affected by the COVID-19. And it's smart that they're moving it off the August 14th date, because now on August 14th on Showtime, you've got a superb unification bout at 118 pounds between Nonito Donaire and John Casimero. Unification for the WBO and the WBC. Then you've got from Frisco, Texas, Vergil Ortiz's hometown. You've got Vergil Ortiz versus Egidijus Kavaliauskas on DAZN in your main event of the evening. Then you've got Josh Franco-Andew Moloney 3. Right? On ESPN. That's a full slate. Once again, on October 14th. Guys, let's talk about Vergil Ortiz. I love Nonito Donaire versus John Casimero. We'll talk about that later with Coach James Gogi, right, this Sunday. Guys, I'd like to focus a little bit on Vergil Ortiz versus Egidijus Kavaliauskas. This is an extremely dangerous fight for the kid, for the undefeated knockout artist, because Egidijus Kavaliauskas has already proven his physical durability. Former two-time Olympian, deep amateur pedigree, and he is arguably the hardest puncher at 147 pounds and a pocket counterpuncher. So you've got the irresistible force against the pocket sharpshooting counterpuncher with quick hands, and he can crack. Guys, this may be one of the more dangerous matchups that Vergil Ortiz could have chosen for himself. But if you expect to get past a guy like Terence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr. or Manny Pacquiao, boy, you'd better be able to get past Egidijus Kavaliauskas, who has limited movement. He's, oh boy. But just looking at the style matchup, guys, this is a terribly dangerous fight for Vergil Ortiz, who likes to let his hands go in regularity. And if he caught incoming against Maurice Hooker, look out. He could get hurt in this fight, and hurt often. Guys, I love this matchup. In fact, this has potential fight of the year written all over it. Both guys can bang. Both guys are physically durable. Both guys are mentally strong. One guy is an effective aggressor. The other is a sharpshooting counterpuncher. Sign me up, guys. This is the fight that I will be tuning into live on DAZN. And I'll be, recording everything else. But I'm going to see this one live, guys. Who do you think wins? Victor Ortiz or Vergil Ortiz? I'm sorry. Don't mean to insult you, Vergil Ortiz or Egidijus Kavaliauskas? Who do you guys think win this one? In my opinion, you have to give the edge to the kid. He's confident. No one has been able to take him the distance yet. But he's never faced a guy who punches as hard as Egidijus, or who has that deep amateur pedigree, and who can counter as effectively. And Vergil Ortiz, unfortunately, is going to give him a lot of opportunities to do this. Vergil Ortiz has to apply intelligent pressure in this fight, working behind an educated jab, using a lot of feints to disrupt that timing and rhythm of Egidijus Kavaliauskas, using his feet to slide in and out of range. But if he gets hit by Egidijus, yeah, he's going to feel it. It's going to hurt him. Love that fight, guys. So anyway, that's going to just about do it, guys. I want to thank you for joining us. And, guys, let me know what you think. Leave in the comment. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to War Week Radio on YouTube. Guys, thank you for joining me. Let me know what you think. And in case you missed any part of the show, it'll be available in its entirety in just a few moments. But, guys, on behalf of, and don't forget, guys, subscribe to War Week Radio. And don't forget to visit FightSaga.com on the daily. I'm Joseph Herron. We'll speak to you soon. God bless everyone, and have a wonderful evening, everybody.